Hello, team! Welcome back to Eye on the Storm. We missed you last week, but we had lots of exciting things happening in the world of Heroes of the Storm, and we have two very exciting personalities with us here today. But if you're just joining us for the first time, first, this is my co-host, Gillyweed. Gillyweed, tell them what we're doing.
Well, this is Eye on the Storm. This is our weekly podcast dedicated to talking about Blizzard's Heroes, Brawler, Heroes of the Storm. Totally botched that. But we bring on different guests, we talk about different topics for the game, we talk about learning the game or things that are happening in the community, and we have a Q&A throughout. You can ask us questions in chat or especially on Twitter by using the hashtag StormShow. And then we end the night with a really fun play session and some really awesome things that are happening in the community. And we are on the channel Misscliks. Anna, what is Misscliks all about?
Misscliks is an online community and a live stream channel that is devoted to uplifting and supporting women role models in geek and gaming culture, but ultimately just making a really safe space on the internet where everyone can come hang out and talk about geeky and gaming-y stuff. So we're doing that here with Heroes of the Storm, and there are lots of other shows you can watch throughout the week, so don't forget to check those out as well. But more exciting than any of that is the two guests we have, because these are some regional champions, guys. Would you mind introducing yourselves and telling us where you guys are from?
Yeah, we are from the Cloud9 Heroes of the Storm team. Like Anna just said, we played in the North American regional event last weekend, and we took first place. We're both on Cloud9. I'm Dunktrain. I'm here with my fellow player, King Caffeine. And
hello.
We're just here to hang out.
And when they say they're on Cloud9, they mean the team as well as how happy they are to have won.
Oh,
isn't that
were
cute?
you saving that?
Yeah, I didn't think of it until Dunktrain said it just now. I'm really into it though.
It's true.
It's been a crazy couple weeks for all of us. All four of us were at North American regionals, so we have lots to talk to you about with that. But before we get into that, we always like to give a little history of our guests, and I know we've had you guys join us before, and the people from the hero scene really know you very well. But I would love to hear kind of the brief history of like how you both got into pro gaming, how you ended up with Cloud9, and what you're kind of up to right now. Of course, you're competing, but you know, are you streaming, or what do you like to do for your job right now?
And your favorite flavor of ice cream. Okay.
Oof.
Okay.
Ooh.
I dig it.
That's a lot to remember. Like, at first it was easy, but now you've got it at the end. Like,
Now we have to think.
Threw 'em
all
off.
the time I'm just going to be thinking, like, what ice cream do I want? Okay. So actually, King Caffeine and I have been on a team for a long time, like 18 months now almost. So we go way back. Basically, before the first BlizzCon, where they had an exhibition tournament for Heroes of the Storm, we joined a team together, and that tournament didn't go so well for us, but ever since then we've been on Cloud9 in various forms and gone through a lot of teammates over the years, but you know, basically just killing it, having a lot of fun. Right now we are in North America. After regionals, we're waiting to go to Korea. We're gonna have a boot camp soon before that. So we'll be boot camping, and then we'll be home again for a day or two, and then we're going to be going to Korea. So maybe only available to stream for the next week and a half, something like that, Calf.
Yeah, about right.
And then we'll be traveling for a little while. So you can catch us on our Twitters, especially. I'm at Dunktrain. I think Calf is at C9 Caffeine.
Correct.
Okay.
Nice.
And yeah, so Pistachio's where it's at, by the way.
Nice.
Pistachio.
Excellent.
Unexpected. Good one. What about you, Kath?
Yeah, so Dunk basically covered all like the stuff we're doing right now. But just as far as beforehand, just gaming's always been a part of my life. I used to play Mario back on NES when I was like 2 years old, like every day, and then all throughout my life going through school and working, I've always been playing games. And I played a lot of MOBAs, and as soon as Hero of the Storm came out, I started playing it, and I loved it. It was really addicting. It's really fast-paced. So I decided to devote a lot of time to it. Yeah, that's how I got here.
Did either of you guys do any pro gaming, like competitive gaming, on a level that you would call professional before? Before Cloud9?
No, well, yeah, Cloud9 looked originally, right? But no, before Heroes of the Storm, neither of us had competed competitively.
I know we have lots to talk about, so I promise this is the last one, Gilly. But
No, he didn't give his ice
He
cream.
didn't give the ice cream.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
Right.
Ice
Right.
cream.
Minus
You're
10
right.
points.
My favorite ice cream is pineapple and coconut from Cold Stone.
Whoa.
I've
You
never
guys are
had
both
that.
so original. I was
Delicious.
expecting like a Rocky Road or like chocolate chip cookie dough, but Wow.
Is that
I'm
your
impressed.
impression of them? Or?
No, that was my impression of.
We're squares, man.
That was my impression
Like
of people
vanilla
who
ice
would
cream.
give more boring ice cream,
Oh, okay.
including myself, because I would have probably said chocolate chip cookie dough.
Good
So
to know what you.
There's
I'm
nothing
making
wrong
fun
with
of myself.
that. I mean, let's be real.
The classic.
Yeah.
My second favorite is peppermint, though, which is kind of rare. A lot of people don't like peppermint
cool.
ice cream. Yeah. What's yours, Gilly? Because we're here now.
I really like peanut butter and then cookies and cream.
Ooh. Peanut butter chocolate is really good. But you mean just peanut butter ice cream?
Yeah, peanut butter chocolate's good too. But
I've never seen just peanut butter ice
Yeah,
cream,
I've
but it
never
sounds
had that.
amazing.
Yeah, me either.
Sounds good.
I could talk all of this hour about ice cream, so I'm like cutting myself off from derailing. Because I did want to ask before we move on to talking about NA regionals. A lot of the time, one of the biggest questions that our viewers want to ask is, how do I get into pro gaming? And since both of you said, I didn't have any pro gaming experience before, what was the turning point from where you were like, I play this game, I'm really good at it, I do well online when I play against other people, to, oh, I could get paid for this and somebody wants to pay me for this and this is my job?
Oh, I don't know. It was kind of weird for me, at least. Like, I was just playing, I was doing a lot of streaming at the time. So I kind of got into playing competitively by the fact that I was so well known in the community. Chef was looking to put together a team for the exhibition tournament at the time. And somebody told him, like, about me, basically, like, hey, check out that Dunk Train guy. Like, he streams a lot or whatever. He's pretty good. So he just, like, talked to me about it. And ever since then, it's been like, once you get there and make the connections, as long as you keep your skills up, you can just, stay on teams, keep trying to improve, etc. I found CAF.
Yeah, exactly. I was to say we basically have the same story because we were both just kind of like high level players. We were just playing a lot of the game. We loved it, and we were playing against the other high level players that were in the game. And yeah, eventually we got noticed, and they just said, "Hey, come on board."
That seems to be the story.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people who have said like, "Oh, I met this person just playing against them on Hero League." That's happened with lots of teams, or I ran into them they were on a different team, maybe in an amateur tournament or something like that, and then you end up playing a lot together with them and forming a team with them. So it's nice that you can make a lot of good connections through Heroes just by playing. Like, you never know when you're going to be playing with somebody you might become a team with. So make sure you're nice to people that you're playing with.
Good advice.
Yes. Well, so we talk about regionals.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
We definitely...
So-
Go ahead. I'm excited. You go. You do it.
Rock, paper,
you take it
scissors
away.
for it.
You had the best question already so far of the ice cream, so you're on a roll tonight.
Oh, thank you. So yeah, overall impressions of how the event went. Like, I heard a lot of people talk about whether or not they liked having all of Group A and all of Group B instead of going back and forth, and how that worked. Just in general, how you felt about the event, format, or the games, or teams, anything like that.
I'm curious too to add to that about like this was a little different because there was no audience, it was all in studio, and then on top of that the tone was maybe a little different as far as between the casters and hosts and everyone. So I'm really curious how it felt to players.
Go ahead, Dunk.
Ah, darn it, I knew you were going to say that. All right. So, okay, the no audience thing was kind of unfortunate, but I think as a result of that, the fact that we were in a small studio meant that you as the host and like the caster desk could really interface with the players, especially after games. And I feel like that gave it like a really good vibe. Like, as a player, and I imagine like as a viewer, it felt like a lot more tight knit, I guess, community wise, like having, you can see the host and the players are right there and they can literally look across the room and talk to the casters. Like, that was kind of cool feeling, I think, that we hadn't seen before from an event, because normally it was like the interviews were the host after the event and it felt really separate from the caster desk and stuff. So like, I thought that was actually a cool way to utilize the fact that there was a smaller space we were doing it in, although not having a audience was unfortunate. As far as like the tournament format and stuff, I mean, that's the same format as it was for regionals. The only complaint I have about that format is I think the round of 4 should be best of 5. That's my only complaint, because I think it's a little unfair that you start off in basically a double elimination best of 3 situation, and then there's like one moment in time where the 2 teams that came out in first seed are like, they don't get double elim anymore, but they still aren't confirmed going to the world championship or whatever. So like I think that's the only kind of rocky spot for the format. Other than that, I loved it. I had a lot of fun.
Would you want like a best of 7 finals if the semis are best of 5s, or just best of 5s all the way through?
I don't know. I think a lot of it's up to how tournament organizers want to do it. There's a lot of stuff you can do to change up how best of 5s or 3s, 7s work, stuff like that, because the map pool plays into it too. Like if you're playing more best of 5s, or if you want to go to a best of 7, then like you need to make sure there's 7 maps in the pool, stuff like that. So that could get worked out. I just feel like since those matches for round of 4 are so important, there should be like a little extra something in there, you know. Best of 5 instead would just really make it feel like, okay, no, this is a big deal, you know.
Heck, just bring back the extended series, man. Just throw that back in there.
Oh, God.
That's my favorite thing to say to anyone who's been in esports since StarCraft, and their face like goes like this. But yeah, so would a double elim semifinals accomplish the same thing, or would you rather it just be best of 5?
I think the reason for the formatting is like if you do full double elim through the whole thing, it adds like an egregious number of games to the total number you have to play. So that's why it's not there. So I understand that for like production reasons, time constraints. So I think the best of 5 is a good compromise, right? Like you play a best of 5, so it is more games, but at least it's not an extra set, an extra 2 sets, 3, whatever, however many, you know.
Totally. That makes sense.
What about you, King Caffeine? Did you have any impressions, any thoughts besides Dunk's?
Yeah, I really like just like the overall feel of the production this time. I know like Chobra was in charge, and it seemed like things were done a little bit differently, and it was really enjoyable. Like how they were just like superimposing GIFs over the stream and stuff like that. Like they were trying to make it a lot more audience friendly, and like even for us, like playing it and stuff, it made it a lot more fun just seeing all the little things they were able to do. And I think in the future it'd be cool too to make it, you know, kind of like the seat story events where they have like in the player area, you know, because we were all the teams were in like the same area on the couches watching the games the whole time.
Yeah.
So they could put like a camera back there, listen to the teams watching the games, talk about the games. Like I think it's like something that looks like they're moving towards, and it seems pretty cool.
Some of the teams have to clean up their language.
Yes, of course. If they were on camera, I'm sure they'd be a little more.
Maybe just mute those guys. I don't know.
It was a really fun part, you know, when we were on break from casting, to just sit with you guys and watch the games. I mean, I learned a lot from that too, but then just in general, it was really fun to get to know a lot of the players a lot more too, and kind of get into their minds. So I really liked that. I loved, like you guys said, how relaxed the feel was, being able to talk to you guys. I thought that some of the interviews were some of the best ones that we've had yet, and I think a lot of that too is just you guys getting more comfortable with giving them too.
Probably.
We had some really great interviews. I loved both of yours as well.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
I loved that I got to interview lots of players too, because a lot of times it'll just be like only captains. And I think I saw the teams being a little surprised by that when like other players would get tapped, but I think it was really cool because the personalities and the stories in Heroes are starting to develop, and it's, you know, starting to grow, and people are starting to want to hear from different players, and like so many memes and GIFs came out of that, and that's what our community loves so much. So that was really cool.
Definitely.
I think it was definitely a better idea to have the casters make the players go up like that they wanted, instead of just like teams are like, okay, go representative, you do the interview, you know?
Yeah, it was cool because Chobra knows the scene so well, so he's in my ear, and right before the game would be over, he'd be like, okay, I think we want so-and-so for this match, and I'd be like, oh, good one, because he did this or that, you know. So it was really nice to have a producer too who really, really knew the Heroes scene. And then it was cool too that they let me sit like right on set, and so at first I have like an IFB in my ear so I can hear the casters, and that's what I usually do at an event. It's just I walk around and I have the casters in my ear, I sit and take notes while I listen to the casters. But I realized after a little while that if I took that out, I could hear both of the teams very clearly, because they had white noise and they didn't know how loud they were talking, so all of them were talking very loudly, and sitting between them I could hear what they were saying in comms. And so it was a really cool kind of like vision into what the team's characters were, and I felt like it really helped me in interviews. I mean, a few times I actually brought up things they said, but mostly it was like, oh, I understand how that game felt for them, or you know, in some cases how things got a little rowdy. So yeah, so it was cool.
One of my favorite moments while watching from the studio was when it was dead quiet and you guys were playing, and all of a sudden K1 is like, Jaina, 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 just like yelling Jaina over and over. Everyone was like, crazy.
It sounds really funny too, because in team fights sometimes it'll be like Jaina, 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 and then like they'll switch and everyone will be yelling the same heroes just over and over. It sounds like a choir, you know?
That's team fight comms.
Yeah.
So, one of the really cool things about a tournament that's like long form like that, where we're gonna watch all of the games, is getting to see how a meta develops over the tournament and seeing how teams can adapt to that, like start picking things up from other teams and then start trying to already adapt to that and be able to counter that if that gets drafted against you. How did you feel about how our particular meta developed throughout the tournament?
Well, basically, like every tournament, as the tournament goes on, more and more stuff comes out. People start, showing their real hands of what they really want to play. So yeah, like every big tournament we've had has really shaken the meta. And in our case specifically, we add to that a lot because we really, really like to reserve the picks that we think are the best for the most critical moments. Because Heroes is a game about information and knowing what your opponents want to do and their strategies, because it's a very strategy-based game. So yeah, the meta is going to be taking a big shift, I think, after we showed a few things. People now in NA will be, probably okay with playing Chen, whereas beforehand, if you pick Chen, people would think you were trolling. So just like one game, and all of a sudden, this hero is going to be getting picked a lot more. And then also, some things like we also ran tankless. Yeah, like that's a real thing. If you leave your composition open to the fact that the other team doesn't need a front line, they're just going to go all out damage and try to beat you that way. So it's cool. I think this is actually like one of the biggest meta shifts because this patch is just really varied. There's a lot of different options.
I know that the audience, like on Twitter and all over the place, were mentioning how much they wanted to see Cho'Gall and then how surprised and happy they were to see so much Cho'Gall. Did you guys expect that?
Yeah. Like, I mean, in the weeks before, everyone knew Cho'Gall was seeing a lot of play in scrims. He's just super good. So, like, for a week in scrims, it was like Cho'Gall every game. And then there were like a couple days where people started figuring out how to beat Cho'Gall. And then once both of those were established, nobody played him for the rest of scrims until it got to tournament day. So like you tried to outmaneuver your opponent and like, okay, did they forget Cho'Gall exists? Can we make something happen here? And it did work out, for the Cho'Gall teams and against them a couple times throughout the tournament.
Were there any, I mean, you guys scrim so much together that a lot of you really know each other's strategies, but were there any huge surprises from other teams that you guys saw coming out meta-wise?
Was there really any? I feel like,
think so.
Yeah, I feel like our team really our tennis, yeah.
Yeah.
Our tennis got us good. Other than that, I felt like we had a bead on what everyone else played in the tournament.
So you weren't aware that they played our team?
No.
Yeah, we heard. I mean, we saw that it was played in maybe an amateur tourney league or something. Wasn't sure when it was picked, but we just kind of just assumed that it was not a good game or something like that. And then playing against it, well, it was a different story.
Yeah, it was early on in one of their qualifiers that they pulled it out. But I could easily see a team, because it was so early on and against like a team that's not known, you guys like thinking, oh, they're just playing random stuff, to make it through to the later parts of the qualifier. So I could see how it'd be like, that's not gonna happen to us.
Yeah.
And even like you don't know if they're gonna have, like, if they're gonna know that it's a good pick there, right? Even if you know they play it, that doesn't necessarily tell you like, hey, they realize that it's actually a counter to strategy X, So it's interesting.
Anna brought up Cloud9, and we have a question from Watch This 18 in chat. What did you guys think when Tempo picked Cho'Gall in Game 3? I actually think this might have been a question asked of you guys after, but were you guys 100% decided on the Anub counter pick?
Well, when we were drafting that game, we got to a point where during the ban phase, it felt exactly like they were going to have to ban Cho'Gall against us or pick it because Cho'Gall looks so broken for our comp. And we had this plan on that map specifically especially where you take Sylve and the Nubrak, and like you just have so many summons and disabling the walls and stuff that your turn-ins get enormous value. And then when it gets to late game, you can just web wrap Cho'Gall, and that's like so backbreaking for him. But funny thing about that strategy is when we tried to play it in scrims, the person whose job it was to play a Nubrak might have misclicked Locust Swarm, so we didn't actually have any practice using web wrap. It was like pure theory crafting, because when we tried it, it was just like, guys, I seem to have picked Locust Swarm. We thought it would work, but we weren't certain, so really glad it works out.
Did that make you guys really nervous going into the game?
Nah.
Oh, it's such a good counter. And actually, there was another time we saw before. It was actually when we were in China, and that's when Cho'Gall came out. And we were trying Cho'Gall early on, and what we found was the biggest thing that shut it down was a Nubrak. It just removes 2 heroes from the game for 10 seconds or so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I dream getting called out. All right, well, we have some more questions, but let's continue on, and I'll try to fit them in as we get to those spots. So where were we at? We talked about the meta.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about, because you guys really had a pretty dominant performance. I mean, overall. Would you say that there was any team or two that really either surprised you in terms of like you didn't expect them to play quite so well, or that just you knew they were coming in and they were tough competition and they were tough competition for you?
For me, I'd say almost all the teams that were there at the event surprised me.
Really?
Yeah, just based on like the last couple of like NA events and stuff like that, it really seemed that there was a large disparity, you know, between the top and the mid-tier teams. But it really seems like that gap is closed. Like all the names coming out, you know, like Kings of Blades, Team Blaze, Panda Global, like they all played really well and really scary. And they just show that they can adapt to the new metas too. Like they're not just teams that will be there for a small period of time. Like they were able to like get on the new draft and, you know, adapt their picks to what all the other regions were playing too. So that was really surprising to see.
Yeah, I agree.
It was cool to see a newcomer like Team Nam, especially kind of, I mean, being the one team that maybe wasn't as picked up or wasn't as known as even some of the smaller teams that were with orgs. To see them put up such a really good fight was really, really cool.
Yeah, I mean, that's hard to do too as a fresh team. They're like no LAN experience, like got in on the last qualifier under questionable circumstances. So props to them for at least making it look like they earned their spot by the way they played against COG like they did. So I think that was really good for the scene. It would have been bad if that hadn't happened, and then like everyone would have been like, oh man, I wish Resurgence had gotten in or whatever. But hey, I mean, they put up a good fight against COG, so good for them.
And we had so many best of threes go to 3. You know, we had so many series that were really contention, and that's why, I mean, our schedule was stretched both days because we never expect that to happen. You know, production didn't account for all of those 3-game series, so that was really cool for people who love watching Heroes, you know.
When they schedule always a best of 3 is scheduled at an hour and a half. But the idea is some of those are going to go over. You're going to have long games. You're going to take a long time between drafts. Drafts are just going to run long. There's going to be breaks between games because people have to go to the bathroom. So some of those will go a little bit longer. But then the idea is you make up the time because you have like a third to a half of your matches go to just the second game. And so you get like so much time back. That was not the case in this tournament.
Yeah. It was funny talking to production because they'd be like, this is a great series. I don't know what we're gonna do. Yeah.
Yes. So how are you guys going into the finals? Because, you know, you guys faced Navintic right after the roster changes at Heroes Rising. They won, but it was a really close series, and it was another best of 5. And you guys had, you know, taken a big break after China, and so people were like, okay, well, I feel like the community was 50-50. Like some people were like, well, Cloud9 needed a break, so they didn't really have time to practice. And then the other time we're like, no, it's Bob Ross time. I feel like that's how it was. And we didn't get to see you guys face off in the qualifiers. And so how are you guys feeling going into the tournament or into the finals with having to face them?
Calf.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm not really surprised at what people were expecting because of our last showing. Like at Heroes Rising, we were doing like really well to start, and then we kind of just like tumbled and kept tumbling 3 games in a row, and it was over. So yeah, like they're a really good team. They're extremely solid players. They have really good teamwork, and they're really smart with draft. But I do feel like we reserved a lot more of our strategy than they did. They basically picked, the same meta throughout the tournament. I think the only thing we saw differently that came out in semis was Illidan. So yeah, we really just prepared for all their strats, and we were going to bust everything out that we needed to come the finals, and that's what we ended up doing, and it ended up working.
When did Butcher come out? Was that semis or was that against you guys?
That was semis.
Yeah, that was against Cognitive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's cool that you guys were able to save your strats just a bit longer then. So you didn't really have to pull anything out versus Tempo Storm. The big, you did the no warrior thing versus Blaze though too, right? Because that's when Artanis got picked.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did it in game 1 against them as well, and we won that game on BOE. We did Tankless, and then we tried it in the second game with Sky Temple. So, and we also ran that. Did we run that against Team Nom? No, yeah, you're right. We ran against Tempo was the next time.
Yeah, against Tempo. I mean, that was something that I think both our team and Naventic was ready for going to the tournament because we'd played it against each other in scrims. So that strategy was like accounted for by both of us, I think, and that's why you saw it didn't really happen much in our actual matches because we'd both played around with it. But yeah, I don't know. It's like the hero scene, there was so much like, oh my god, BRFC, they're so good, Naventic, oh my god, because they won that LAN. I don't know. I think a lot of people just thought we were bad now because of one showing. So
cool. And it was right after China, or it was between the two China things as well. So like that was a pretty long slump for us for sure.
Yeah,
I think we're out of that now.
So you did.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, did you have another question though from chat? Because that's more.
It was a chat question. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. It was about the no warrior composition, and it was by Zorzo, who asked. It looked like you guys took so many melees just to make Zuna play something awkward. Was that part of the strategy, or was it more just based on how the comps were going throughout the draft?
Yeah, it didn't. Those weren't targeted picks at all. We weren't, or targeted denial picks. Yeah, that was just composition that we thought was strong. So yeah,
I agree.
Anna?
I was just going to say, kind of finishing up our talk about the finals and about the competition, seeing you guys on stage as the winners, I was wondering, there was kind of a calmness to you, and I know part of that is like, after you have just come out of a Heroes game, it's kind of like a system shock of like, I have to be back in real life now after I've just been playing really hard. And so there's that. But then there was also the, maybe you're overcome with emotion being a second-time regional champion, or maybe you're starting to get used to winning and it's like not changing your feelings very much. So what was the mix of emotions there?
I think we were super stoked when we won a round of 4 and knew we were going to Korea. That was like the biggest deal, I think. Winning finals was great, not gonna lie, but without the live audience, it doesn't take it to that next level. Like you're happy, you're like super excited, but you're not like mind blown, oh my god, roar of the crowd, like adrenaline pumping. Like it was good, but it wasn't like BlizzCon stage. Good, you know?
Yeah, going to Korea it's kind of like, at least for me, it's like a spiritual journey for esports. So you said that was really the spot that meant the most to you guys. Is that why?
Kath?
Yeah, definitely. Like, we just went to China and had like a mixed experience, but I mean, now we're looking forward to Korea because, they're really supportive of, like foreign gamers and stuff like that. And we get to basically get a chance again, at the #1 spot in the world, which is what we want. So, and another cool thing is we didn't get to play any of the other Korean teams ever. So this will be the first time we get to play against like MVP Black and Rave. So yeah, I really want to play against, especially MVP Black. I want to see how good they are.
Yeah, we wanted to ask. I mean, we're getting late in the show and we have so much we want to talk to you guys about, but we wanted to ask about traveling to Korea and what you're looking forward to there, and if you have any particular like you just mentioned playing against these Korean teams, but are there any teams that you're really specifically looking at trying to prepare for?
I would say there's kind of a grudge match now between us and E-Star that needs to happen. Last time we got 3-0'd by them on their turf, so now we'll be kind of on equal footing. And yeah, I really want to beat them. Dunk?
Oh yeah, I want to put E-Star on the floor. Like I feel like because we only got to match up against them one time in the 2 times we went to China, and it was like probably one of our worst days. It's just like, oh, now like everyone thinks like, oh man, if E-Star had showed up to BlizzCon, they would have won. But like, we gotta put that to rest. I mean, we got to show up in Korea so people know it wasn't a fluke.
Mm-hmm.
We had a question from Aries. What team was most interesting to listen to on comms? I would say Niventic was pretty funny. What about you?
Niventic was funny, but just because they would like explode sometimes and then other times be completely quiet, so that was weird. I think I really enjoyed listening to Team Blaze, and a lot of this was I was always seated on the right side, so teams that were red team I got to hear better than teams that were blue team. But the mix of intensity they had versus trolliness they had. One thing I really enjoy about our community and about this event particularly is we're very like lighthearted. I mean, it's indicative how much people on Twitter and in chat were talking about everyone's hair at the event. Like, it just became this big meme that everyone wanted to talk about hair. I mean, people just don't take themselves too seriously in Heroes, which is something I really like. So the mix...
talk about hair and beards.
Yeah, they love it. They love it. So in thinking about why I enjoyed talking to Team Blaze, it was cool because they had this, like, they were super, super serious mode, and then they would flip into this, like, trolly meme speak for a second and then go back into super serious mode. So that was really fun. And I think a lot of teams do that. I don't think it was just them, but they're the one that comes to mind that was doing it when I was listening.
Cool. You guys can keep asking your questions. We're going to try to get through the rest of the things that we have to talk about, and I'll try to make sure to ask all of the questions during the play session. So we talked about preparing for Korea.
Yeah.
I want to point out... Oh, go ahead, Anna.
Just the last thing we wanted to talk about after, unless you had anything else on Korea, Gilly, was roster changes, because there were just so many, and we didn't originally have that written into our outline for this week, but everything just kind of exploded, so we wanted to hear what you guys thought of these roster changes. I'm going to quickly go through them. We had, as I move the overlay for you guys so you can see these, we had Team Blaze announcing that they're going to be parting ways with Rafflecopter and Battery. We had King of Blades Alpha announcing that the team is going to stay together, but they'll be playing as Gust or Bust. They'll be leaving King of Blades Alpha. Big Impact announced that he's going to be leaving Panda Global, and it doesn't seem like that's even kind of the end of everything that's happening. So for you guys, Caf and Dunk, did you see these changes coming? How did they affect you? What do you think?
I think it's just part of the natural cycle of any competitive scene. Anytime there's a really big event, it kind of marks like the end of like an era, basically, for teams. And they're like, okay, we were shooting a lot of times. Most of the teams are shooting for #1 at the big event coming up. And after that, if they don't quite place where they want, they just reflect on their play, team dynamic, and it just is natural for the team to try to improve itself. And that's what happens. I'm sure that these players that are leaving these teams aren't going to disappear. Whether they all join the same team or, kind of augment some of the other teams, we'll see.
Mm-hmm. It does seem in this genre, particularly, this happens after every major competition. The teams that don't move on tend to reinvent themselves. And I'm always curious how much of that is warranted, like how much of it is, okay, this team really didn't gel well, or how much of it is like, oh, we tried so hard, let's just try something different, I never know, because I've never managed a team like this.
I think it depends, but like when you've qualified for the big event and you're like focusing so much on that, you'll tolerate a lot more like issues within your team until it finishes. And then if it finishes and you're like, wow, we didn't win and I was miserable, like then kill it. So it doesn't surprise me at all. Like, even if a team does well, I think there can be justification for players leaving and stuff like that. If it's just like, if you reach a point with those people where you don't want to be, you know, that tight anymore, then it's okay. Sometimes people just have to go their separate ways. Even like when you win the tournament, that could happen. Like, look at the last TI, someone literally left the team after they won the next day or got kicked or whatever, just because, I mean, you do everything you can to stay together to be in top shape for the tournament, and then, well, tournament happened, we don't really have any more obligation to each other, so if the team's not really bonded, then they go their separate ways.
It's crazy how much like friendship and interpersonal relationships play into pro gaming, because you always think it's just about skill, but it's about meshing with your team too, it sounds like.
Yeah, I would say it's at least as much about communication and like having faith and trusting your teammates as it is about like your personal skill, honestly, especially in Heroes, where a lot of people will say that like the mechanical ceiling or whatever is not as high as some other games in the genre or whatever. I mean, maybe that's true, but I think in all of them, it's like, if you just don't have faith in your team anymore, you're not going to perform.
Any other questions from chat, Gilly, before we move on to talking about Zool and the patch?
No, we'll get to the questions that I do have so far during the play session to make sure we still have time for the patch.
Okay. Want to take us into that? I've been talking a ton here.
Sure, no worries. I've been dealing with chat. So they did point out that Psalm also left Panda Global, and there's potentially more going on with that, but I didn't put it down because there's no official announcement just yet. But we'll keep you updated on that one, guys. But for now, there was a patch that came out. Most notably, it introduced Zool, our newest hero, to the Nexus. There are also changes that came in balance-wise for both Nova and Rhaegar that we will get to in a second. But I wanted to start off with the user interface because we have 4 more OB slots.
Yes!
I'm so happy.
Yes! It's gonna change everything.
So more observer slots is going to be so nice. That's going to be really good too, especially for places like Europe, which have several different language casts. That's going to help a lot in being able to make sure that there are, you know, different languages being represented, whereas 2, it was always pretty rough to deal with. We had to do things like clean feeds, and that was pretty interesting. But
will you explain what a clean feed is for people who aren't familiar with production?
Yeah, it's somebody who just basically streams just the game and the game sounds, and you're observing it, and that way you can cast over it. And so what they would do is maybe the main cast would have one caster in the game, and then they would screen share with their co-caster, but then the other observer slot would be someone who was doing a clean feed, and so they would just be broadcasting their observing of the game. Sometimes that would be the second caster in the main cast, but it was always tough because you're relying on someone else's stream to make sure that you were able to do your stream, and you're like behind, and it was kind of a mess. So I'm really excited about this.
Do players care about this very much? Because casters definitely care about this, but do you?
I don't think it means that much. Like, it means a lot to production. It doesn't mean that much to players, I feel like. Like, I guess we can have more casters watching our scrims and stuff now, spying on us. Other than that,
that's what we like to do.
Give away all our strategies.
Another thing about the interface was that they have, I love this, abilities that use charges will now display charge cooldown. So if you think of things like Radiant Dash or Blink Heal, anything that has charges, it will show a cooldown for the charge, which Stark, my friend, made it explained it very well to me. Like with Karzim, you couldn't really tell if you had like that second charge about to be up, so you couldn't tell if you could like Radiant Dash in, knowing that it would be back up in time. So it's just, you know, more information for the players. I'm sure that one is a lot cooler for you guys.
Yes.
Yeah, that one's really nice.
Yeah, that's really good for the viewer experience, like when they can see cooldowns and stuff like that, because it really, like, because a lot of times people don't really understand decision making, and a lot of that will just come down to, you know, the cooldowns. It's just hard to see, but you know, if they do this, yeah, people will understand it a lot more.
And that affects not only abilities with charges, but also buffs and talents that use charges. So the one that they were talking about was block and focused attack. So pretty cool. And then finally, you can now alt and left click any of your ability or talent icons to indicate the cooldown durations to teammates via chat messages. And it can also be used for like your health and mana. I wanted to ask, how much is this, will this affect for you guys? Will you guys use it for your team as much? Because I'm assuming like you'll be doing that through comms, which means this is probably more for like Hero League people.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Honestly, like if we were to all like do all those ping things, I think the interface is kind of weird because like it kind of clutters up your screen.
Yeah.
Just how they have it right now. Like it's a really good idea for Hero League though, and I love that. Like I played a bunch of Hero League today and used it a lot. So that's a really big bonus for that.
I feel
it's
like
a lot better than having to type it out.
I looked at this and since the beginning of Heroes have always felt like like we talked about, Heroes is so collaborative. There's so much communication that you need. You have to be able to communicate with other people in order to play. And yeah, there's these pings and things, but they're like, it's like shouting across a room and trying to like communicate with somebody, you know? So, I mean, I understand that there are challenges with voiceover in game, but I just have always felt like these are just band-aids that they're putting over the problem, that if you can't talk to the people you're playing with, then it's really, really hard to play this game. So when I saw this, I was like, cool, first of all, because I can communicate more, but second of all, like, why do you keep just putting band-aids over this wound and instead of like going and getting some stitches, you know? Like,
So true.
Yeah.
that's just my take. Sorry, Blizzard, I love you, but
Hannah has been petitioning for that since I have known her pretty much.
I'm tired, Gilly, of carrying this weight with me.
So,
I completely agree. Like the game needs that. The game needs voice chat, especially for a game that's just based so much on teamwork. It's just crazy to not be able to communicate everything with all the people that you're playing with.
And fine, let people opt out, you know, let people not have it on if they want, or have settings about it or whatever, but I just, it's something that seems so easy to me, so I would love someday for a Blizzard developer to explain to me why they can't have that.
Yeah.
I don't know. Sorry, Blizzard, I love you. Anyways, moving on. Anything else we want to talk about in the patch, or should we move on to talking about Zool?
just snipe damage was increased, and Snipe Master still trying to make fetch a thing. Basically, is how I feel.
It's never gonna happen.
Yeah, and I don't know if you guys want to talk about that at all, but Rhaegar, I would love to get your opinion, Dunk, especially as his rework came in and it was like, whoa, Rhaegar, you're crazy. And then they've slowly been bringing him down. This time, the radius from electric charge that was increased to 33% is now just 25%, which, because it's a radius, is pretty big.
Yeah.
Stormcaller, it no longer increases the duration. Earth Shield, the shield amount is reduced from 15% to 12% of target's maximum health, which always seemed crazy to me because that was basically Prot Shield. Ancestral Healing, the cooldown was increased by 20 seconds, and then Bloodlust, the mana cost was reduced. What are your thoughts on that?
Overall, I understand why all the changes were made. Like, I think power level wise, those are fine changes to make, but my only problem is it makes his level 4 talents look really awkward. Is like he has one talent that reduces mana cost of Chain Heal, one that reduces mana cost for Lightning Shield, and one that regenerates mana while he's in wolf form. So it's like, it feels like you don't actually have choices on that tier. That's like my only real gripe with it. Like, yeah, he probably needed nerfs. I don't know if that's how I would have nerfed him, but it's fine that that happened. It's just the level 4 thing I think looks bad. Other than that, I think with the nerfs to Lightning Shield, like the Earthbind Totem build is probably a really good choice now. Like, just go Earthbind Totem at 1 and 16 instead of trying to go so all in on the Lightning Shield synergy, because you can still pick up the shield at 13 and be really powerful that way. You just don't need to all in on like having someone in melee range, right? Because it's harder to get the damage to stack up because of the level 1 nerf, and it's harder to get the full value because you don't have the increased duration. I think people aren't going to understand, like, losing that 2 seconds on the duration of Lightning Shield makes level 16 talent so much worse by like a wide margin, because those were the most damaging 2 seconds.
Right.
So removing that means that like you should probably be using Totem build as your default go-to, and maybe the Lightning Shield gets moved to like the niche oh, I have an Illidan this game, it's still going to be good type deal, you know?
Yeah, he can stick to people really well to make sure you get the harder hits of that on. You wouldn't pick up the totem talent at 7 that lets you move the totem from one place to another?
Okay, in theory, you could make an argument that it's good enough, but probably not.
I'm just giving you crap.
Okay. Okay.
And that's pretty much it other than Zool, unless you guys have anything else about the rest of the patch.
No. Pretty small changes. I like what they're doing, how they changed the shield on Rhaegar from like 15% to 12%, like just like a 3% change. I really like tuning like that instead of just like the crazy like revamping everything all the time. So glad to see them making small changes.
Do you guys think you'll see any Nova with this change?
Doubt it.
Someday we'll figure you out, Nova.
Yeah.
Someday, my love.
Well, they can start by making it so she can use her Q ability to help her team instead of just only shooting heroes. that idea is a little silly. Like, what if your team wants to do boss? You're like, sorry, I can't help.
I'll auto attack it very slowly.
Yeah.
Does that work?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, then let's talk to Zool. You want to take this one, Anna?
Well, actually, I was thinking it might be fun for one of our guests, actually, Kaf, because I know you've played so much Zool, just to give an overview really quickly for people who might be like, I missed it, I haven't played Zool yet, of his abilities.
Yeah, sure. I'm going to pull it up real quick. All right. So Zool is a melee specialist. Basically fulfills the role of like an early game pusher, lane bully. He has an exceptional wave clear. And late game, he serves the role as like an anti-dive, but also being like a really strong carry in the late game. He's very durable, he's melee, and he has a lot of potential. Do you want me to go over his abilities?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I have them up for people to look at from the patch notes right now, and you guys can find these on us.battle.net, or you can find them in game, but Kaf can give you the skinny.
Okay, yeah, sure. So the Q is Spectral Scythe. It's a really interesting skill shot. It like starts as a circle, a fixed distance away from your character. You can't aim it like close to yourself or farther away. It's only a fixed distance. And after a small delay, a scythe comes spinning back to you, damaging everything it hits. Looking at this ability just by itself, it's a decent ability. It's 8-second cooldown for high damage nuke. But he gets a lot of talents that build into it that make him a real integral part of his kit, including one where it becomes basically on a 2-second cooldown. So you're spamming it. His W, Curse Strikes, 15-second cooldown, basically turns his auto attack into a conal cleave in front of him. And this cleave slows attack speed by 50% for 2 seconds, and it lasts for 4 seconds. So that's what really comes into him being an anti-dive, for melee clump. If melee heroes trying to like pile in on your medic or something like that, you flip on your conal damage and it slows their attack speeds, and it can be talented up to 75%. A melee assassin that has 25% of his attack speed is going to be doing little to no damage. It's basically like a 4-second blind. So that has huge potential. His E ability, Bone Prison, after a 2-second delay, deals some damage and roots for 2 seconds. This is one of the most frustrating abilities in the game to play against, because there basically is no counterplay. It's very short range, though. It's just like right outside of his melee range. And it's a targeted ability, so all he has to do is just click on the enemy, and 2 seconds they're going to get rooted. And so you have to be prepared for that. He basically is like you have to treat him like there's just an AoE around him that you can't get close to, because if he has that up, you're going to be out of position really quickly.
That is so annoying.
Yeah.
And the noise it makes, we were talking about this earlier, the noise it makes, you just hear it and you're like raging already. Anyways, continue.
Yeah, it's really loud too. It just like booms in your headphones.
Yeah.
It's really funny. So his ults I think they're both really good. The first one, Poison Nova, it's a 90-second cooldown, pretty long, but there's a reason for it, because it does an insane amount of damage. I think it's something like 1,200 damage over 10 seconds at level 10, right when you get it. And, that's like over or about half HP for most squishies, if not over. So that's a really good ability. It just comes out centered on him, and basically kind of like every direction, omnidirectional nuke. It's pretty slow. It's easy to be avoided. But if you get hit by it, basically what it serves to function is, again, anti-dive. So if they come in on you and they're clumping on you, you can release it. You can't really just run at them and use this ability. It's not going to be that effective. You're better off using it when they're already all committed to the fight. His other ult, 70-second cooldown, Skeletal Mages. It summons 4 mages in a line. It's kind of like a force wall with a couple of gaps in it. But to make up for the gaps, the wall will attack you and slow you. And it lasts 15 seconds, which is a really long period of time. So if you get a really good wall off in the middle of a team fight, it's extremely disruptive, and it makes it really hard for people to escape. Oh, and last but not least is Trait. This is what makes him a lane bully and basically just an overall pushing monster. Whenever a minion nearby dies, he'll summon a skeleton. It's pretty squishy, I'd say. It's basically like an Anubrak beetle. And you can have 4 of those at once, and it doesn't cost any mana. So anytime you kill a minion and you don't already have 4 up, 1 will spawn. So having free minions that can tank buildings and disrupt enemies, block skill shots, that's really strong.
So do you think this is one that you're going to be using a lot?
I'd love to play this hero. We'll see if I actually end up playing it or if it will fall to someone like iDream. But yeah, I'm definitely interested in playing this hero as kind of like a frontline tank. Oh, the other thing I forgot about him is he's the first hero, I think, to have an activatable ability on his 1 starting from the beginning of the game. Yeah, so he starts with basically a stone skin, a 30-second shield that just blocks damage, so it makes him an even stronger brawler, and it can be talented to do crazy things.
Is there anything in particular you really love about him?
I really like the role that he fills now. I mean, it's kind of scary now with the level 20 talent where he has the Mortal Strike, removing 75% of healing. That's a pretty big impact on the game. I like that idea if it was on more heroes, but it's going to make this guy, like, basically Dunk was going through this, I think, on Town Hall the other night. Basically, he was saying that it's going to make him, you have to ban him, because if you don't ban him, and your strats are rolled around team fighting or something like that, your healers aren't going to get heals off. It's not going to happen. So he's going to have a very, very high impact, and overall, I think he's just really fun to play as a melee.
We do have a build here, and I'm showing it on screen now, but don't worry, we will also link it in chat, because we are going to have Zool being played in our play session. But before we move on to that, Dunk, did you want to add anything about Zool?
No.
Good.
Pretty much got it.
Okay.
He
covered it. That's good. All right. Gilly, any other questions we have from chat right now?
No, I think we have 11 people going to play, so I think I will obs with you and then be able to ask questions from chat and
nice.
on Twitter while you're. Yeah, it'll be fun.
Wow.
Yeah. We'll get to take advantage of those new observer slots, Anna.
I know. I was just gonna say that, but then there's only 2 of us, so we always could have done this. I don't know why we didn't before ever.
We're gonna really make it count. Okay, we're gonna be switching between lots of the different.
It was
slots.
too crowded in there before. Now we have those extra spots, and it's
How do you guys feel about Towers of Doom? What battleground do you think would be really good for displaying Zool's potential?
Towers of Doom works. Yeah, I guess. Sure, let's go.
Okay, because we could pick a different one too if you'd rather.
Yeah, he's good at this map because he's really good at like stalling points with his low cooldown, range denial. So yeah, I think this will work.
All right, awesome. Well, in that case, I think we're gonna take a short break while we get on the phone with our 3 members joining you guys. So hang tight, everybody. We'll see you soon.
Be right back.
Stay tight.